I think we saw over the weekend a lot of the kind of pushback against the Sunday Times directly in terms of that, which is what you kind of often expect from reform in these circles. What we haven't seen is Farage yet, and that Farage has been doing fewer press conferences recently, so we've seen less of him in public. And I think the problem they've got is the bandwidth issue, Kate. So you may want to talk about small boats, you may want to talk about whatever policy you've got coming down the line, but actually when there are stories like this, big questions to answer about these gifts from the convicted fraudster, that's a problem because it just dominates all of the media attention.
The other story of the morning started yesterday in the Sunday Times to do with Nigel Farage. The Times this morning reveals that the convicted fraudster and crypto entrepreneur George Cottrell was giving out business cards with his name on, as well as Reform UK and Nigel Farage's email address. The news follows the Sunday Times uncovering the depth of the two men's relationship. Cottrell gave Farage use of his house and paid for security and social media in the year before the Reform UK leader was elected as MP. Ollie Cole is the Times Radio's newsroom reporter and can fill in some more details. Ollie, morning to you.
Hi, Kate. Hi, Stig. It's lovely to be with you. That's what we're all doing now.
Yeah. He did sound
not quite a Harry Kane level, but it's not far off. Yeah.
You get excited about politics, so I wouldn't actually put it past you to be that excited. This story matters because Nigel Farage is one of the most significant politicians in the country. The fate of Nigel Farage and the fate of reform absolutely dictates the next Prime Minister of this country, it's fair to say, isn't it? And the question is, are questions now being asked about his transparency when it comes to people who've given him money or services?
Yeah, Nigel Farage and reform, even before Nigel Farage returned to sort of frontline politics and said, I'm going to stand to be an MP for Clacton, are intertwined. And this is the difficult thing for reform in this particular story, which is, yesterday, an incredible investigation by Gabriel Pogrund and the Insight team looking into the history of this man, George Cottrell, who served time in the US, and Nigel Farage. And the line from Reform UK was that they go back years, and they do, about 10 years they've been sort of close allies to each other. And therefore, what George Cottrell was doing for Nigel Farage was purely a personal gift. Now, the difficulty comes in the follow-up from the Times today. George Greenwood and the rest of the Inside team basically, have pointed out that actually last year George Cottrell was handing out business cards with Reform UK's logo on, with Nigel Farage's email address on, which shows that even though he didn't have an official role within the party, there is a link there somewhere along the way. Now, Reform say, essentially it was just for George Cottrell to, if he was at a thing and he met, nice, interesting business people who wanted to help out Reform, he could at least share the contact details with them and have something to hand that he could use. But it does rub up against the idea that Reform was saying yesterday that this is purely personal and purely down to their friendship. You've got to remember as well that, Nigel Farage wasn't running to be the MP for Clacton when this happened, but he was the honorary president of the party and the majority shareholder of the party as well. Reform and Nigel Farage are interlinked, and that's the issue.
And the point is also that once you then become an MP, you have to go back 12 months before you became an MP when some of this stuff was happening.
Yeah, exactly. So this is where the referral you heard from Josh Braberinde earlier and Labour, Alex Barras-Curtis, have both referred to the Commissioner for Standards, who I imagine we will hear something from today. He is already investigating this £5 million cryptocurrency donation from Christopher Harborne. They have asked for him to look into this latest track of spending and gifting. It's really interesting, actually, the rules. So 12 months beforehand, you, as an MP, you're allowed to take personal gifts if they are purely personal. So if they are from a family member or friend for, say, helping out, cover your rent or, building a shed in your garden or something like that, that's sort of fine. But the interesting language in the Code of Conduct says MPs must not disclose any benefit which might reasonably be thought by others to influence their actions or words. And that's the difficult bit, because you've got Daniel Greenberg there, the Standards Commissioner, who is a lawyer. He knows, parliamentary legislation and the law very, very well. And in a court of law, which this won't be, but in a court of law, you have to judge that reasonable person's expectation quite often.
Well, that's an interesting point, Ollie, because this doesn't pass the punter test, in my opinion, because no one builds you a shed or gives you money or arranges your security. It's not how the real world works. People either give you things in return for things or they don't give you anything at all. I think it's this mad notion that there's such a thing as a significant personal gift that's not a birthday present. I mean, outside of a birthday present, that's not how the world functions to most people. And he sets himself up as a man of the people. Getting given stuff by big crypto guys isn't how most people would regard the world working, would they?
Well, this is the difficulty. I think there are some Reform supporters who, genuinely for them, the cause of Reform UK is greater than this, and there we are.
And we're getting some of them getting in touch
exactly,
today.
and that will be the case. The issue is, however, Nigel Farage pitched himself as an anti-establishment figure. He once said he, as a politician, couldn't be bought, and that builds into that perception. Whether it's founded in accuracy or not. Now, the interesting thing about what Reform have done in the last 24 hours, if they very much, to bring it back to the World Cup, played the man and not the ball. They have gone after Gabriel Pogrund in quite an extraordinary way to go after a man who is a renowned award-winning journalist, and they've gone after him for saying that he's a Labour stooge. Now, I will remind them that this is the man who broke the story of Lord Alley's donations early on in Keir Starmer's premiership and caused what's essentially...
He's pretty good on stories of alleged corruption.
He's an equal opportunities corruption finder, and so they've gone after him. And they've done that after Robert Jenrick was on the broadcast airwaves yesterday, essentially confirming every single fact of the story. So where this goes next is going to be a really, really tricky pitch.
It is indeed. We'll follow it very closely on the station. Ollie, great to speak to you. That's Ollie Kohler, the Times Radio's newsroom reporter.
Let's have a chat with Stephen Swinford, shall we? The political editor of the Times. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Kate.
Shall we start by talking about Reform UK? We heard from Michael Crick earlier. Most of us will have read by now the Sunday Times reporting about Nigel Farage. And we've been talking with Albie and Sienna just there about kind of what it means for Reform UK. What are you picking up, though, from inside Reform about how they're responding to these allegations? Are they concerned, or are they in pretty sort of tough, robust mood?
I mean, they're always in tough, robust mood, and I think we saw over the weekend a lot of the kind of pushback against the Sunday Times directly in terms of that, which is what you kind of often expect from Reform in these circles. What we haven't seen is Farage yet, and that Farage has been doing fewer press conferences recently, so we've seen less of him in public. And I think the problem they've got is the bandwidth issue, Kate. So you may want to talk about small boats, you may want to talk about whatever policy you've got coming down the line, but actually when there are stories like this, big questions to answer about these gifts from the convicted fraudster, that's a problem because it just dominates all of the media attention, and it means your message, to get other messages out there, is much more limited as a result.
And ultimately, that will do some damage to Reform. At the moment, what do you think we're talking about here? Do you think this is going to limit their ability to move forward in terms of getting that broader vote?
I think it makes it harder at this point in time, right now, because he's going to keep getting questions. He did a broadcast round last week, which was a really difficult broadcast round, where he got asked about it again and again. He was clearly frustrated about that. But ultimately, Kate, this could end in a by-election. That was the point. So if the Standards Commissioner decides that this wasn't a gift, and therefore from a personal source or personal friend, and therefore is not exempt, it could ultimately result in a suspension from the Commons, and that could lead to him losing Clacton. Now, he could fight and win that seat again, but it's all a lot of oxygen and a lot of time being spent talking about things that he probably doesn't want to be talking about.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that, Steve. Elsewhere, Sir Keir Starmer is heading off to NATO. He's going to that meeting in Ankara. It's only 2 days. It's not very long. But it will be probably his final foreign engagement, and there have been many of them. He'll face a difficult time, though, won't he? Because Donald Trump and others in the American administration have been very critical of the UK and other allies not getting to that 3.5% target, and beyond that, the 5% one.
Yes, and that is the problem. From what I'm told, they're going to be seated alphabetically. So he's actually going to be sitting next to Donald Trump, which is, I'm not sure where you want to be. And there's real worries in government that Trump is going to explode directly at him. And this was, in a parallel universe, supposed to be a really kind of good farewell for Keir Starmer. The whole leadership timetable was designed around this so that Andy Burnham wouldn't come in before this. But actually, it's really difficult because his defence spending plan is unfunded. Trump is aware of that. He will have concerns over that. And it just depends on how hard he wants to go today. We're used to kind of these volcanic eruptions from Trump. There have already been quite a few over the course of the weekend. So I think Starmer will just be hoping he doesn't have to deal with one literally to his face.
And just finally, Steve, there is, talking about defence spending and the NATO meeting in Ankara, the Ministry of Defence have released a statement this morning, which, it's not unconcerning. They're talking about operating in the Norwegian Sea on operations. The UK's carrier strike group was repeatedly approached by a Russian Bear F maritime patrol aircraft, which passed at low altitude and unnecessarily close to the HMS Prince of Wales and dropped a large number of sonobuoys in close proximity to the carrier. They go on to say the activity was unsafe, unprofessional, and the Russian aircraft was intercepted and escorted by 2 UK F-35 jets from the area. How normal is that for that kind of engagement to happen?
Well, frankly, it's not normal, but the government has been talking about it for some time. There have been a few incidents of this sort, and it's testing boundaries, and things are getting more and more tense. And it's against this backdrop that you have this big row about defence funding, this idea that Russia could actually launch an attack on a NATO ally by 2030. That is what MI6 has concluded in this country, and our counterparts in NATO have concluded as well. So it's a very real threat, and it's yet another reminder that it's constant, and we're going to need both the kind of the people and the kit to respond.
Steve, thank you as ever. Great to have you with us.
Thank you.
That is Stephen Swinford there, the political editor of The Times.